Hello again and welcome back for a digital lesson where we're wrapping up our unit on westward expansion, and today we're going to be talking about the women's suffrage movement. And for those of you that don't know, women's suffrage is talking about women's right to vote. And in the 1800s, women were denied a lot of the rights that they have today, and this sense of equality wasn't there. And we're going to look at some of the women that argued to make it possible to get things where they are today. And the first major event that takes place is in July of 1848, the Seneca Falls Convention in New York, in Seneca Falls, New York. Men and women get together to formulate a way that they can argue and lobby for women to have the same rights as men. And this is the first time this takes place here in the United States. And it was put together, one of the leading figures but was Elizabeth Cady Stanton. And at this convention, they have this idea for a declaration of sentiments. And with the declaration of sentiments, they say the big takeaway is all men and women are created equal. All right, so it's not all men are created equal, it's all men and women are created equal. And like I said, women during this time period, they did not have the right to vote. They also didn't have the same opportunities to get an education that men did. There weren't really avenues for women to get educated during the 1800s. So no school. They didn't have the opportunity to own businesses or factories or really go to work for the most part. So women were denied, opportunities in business. And finally, women weren't allowed to own homes. They had to have a husband or a parent, a father, sign off on a house for them to live in. So home ownership wasn't an option for women either. So the Seneca Falls Convention, the people there believed that women were being denied opportunities to vote, opportunities in education, opportunities in business, and opportunities to own property. Finally, you have strong female leaders like Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott that lead the campaign from before the Civil War until long after it ends. And these women, are at the Seneca Falls Convention and start the ball rolling on women's rights. Now, women's suffrage doesn't take place until the 19-teens with the 19th Amendment. So it is a long process, but it gets going in the 1840s. Now we're going to look at a few specific individuals involved in the women's suffrage movement, and Sojourner Truth is a major one. She was a former slave, and she argued for equality, and she's nationally famous with her perspective on life because, of course, being a former slave and arguing for women's rights, she's got an angle that really resonates, especially in the North. The next woman we'll look at is Susan B. Anthony. And Susan B. Anthony advocates for women having voting rights and equal rights for all. And her and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, they cross paths in 1851 and start working together. And Cady Stanton will actually write some speeches for Susan B. Anthony. And once Elizabeth Cady Stanton can no longer travel. So Susan B. Anthony becomes really the face of the women's suffrage movement and the most famous women's suffrage leader. So she argued that women should have voting rights and there should be equal rights for everyone. And the final one, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, one of the founders of the Seneca Falls Convention, again with Lucretia Mott, and she was a key leader in getting this women's rights movement off the ground. So be sure for any upcoming quizzes or tests, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Sojourner Truth, and Susan B. Anthony as far as women's suffrage leaders go.